Is that on?
Yeah, it's on. You're on.
Warm-ups, I used to do like just drinking and smoking. That was it, and that worked for a long time. But at a certain point, it just started getting kind of uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Like it slips, and the vocal cords are like this, and then they just go like that, and you can't sing.
Yeah.
So I warm up just doing a variety of like warm-ups. It only takes about 15 minutes. Or if you're really hoarse, you warm up for like an hour. And I went to this guy named Eric Vitro, and he's a vocal coach that like does a lot of work on Broadway and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he recommended about 5 or 6 different exercises that are really, really good. So find yourself a good vocal coach.
And would you recommend that kind of earlier on? It's probably easier when you're first starting out just to not really bother with it. Like
no, you should. I mean, it's just like imagine like you're going to run a marathon and you don't stretch. By mile 2, you'd be like hurting. And there's a lot of damage you can do. So, and it's bizarre to think that like we are actually doing something athletic, but it's you got to actually approach it like that.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as you can go and learn what works for you, because everybody's different, you can zero in on just kind of like, like sometimes you can like part of my sound is a certain amount of inflammation and kind of like, the raspiness.
Yeah.
You want a little like inflammation. You want some damage sometimes, and so you just don't warm up as much. But you've got to be careful because if you don't warm up, you might slip. So it's a fascinating balance between like healthy and unhealthy. But I've gotten to the point now where I can sing the way I sing for like 4 shows, 5 shows in a row now, which is really that's where it's at. Because like I want to be able to perform every night. I don't like taking days off. So.
Yeah. So like obviously you've got a tour being planned at the minute. I wanted to know, like, do you still get excited about touring, and what places in particular do you look forward to?
I mean, I look forward to London. I look forward to a lot of places in Germany. I always like going to Hawaii. That's nice. Or Australia, New Zealand. America's an interesting place because it's more reserved than a lot of what like Europe's like.
Yeah. It's
not as I mean, there have been incredible nights of insanity, but you do know that they know that like you're going to be back. They're like, okay, well, we'll see when you know what I mean. So, but I enjoy every aspect of it. I like rehearsing. I like getting ready for the tour. I like picking the songs. I like going back and grabbing old stuff and doing some new things for fans that have been around for a long time. It's like, let's go back and do a lot of stuff on the first record, and and just keep diversifying and everything. And I got a new band that's with me, Robert Patterson and Phil Buckman, the drummer Mika Finio. They're all just great guys, and it's way heavier this version, so it's cool.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it basically going back to the new album's kind of a lot more industrial and like going back to your roots almost.
Yeah, it's the first single is actually, it's called The Inevitable Relapse, and it has that one of the shocking things that I did was I actually used auto-tune on the verses. And like it's been like this incredibly controversial, like half the fans love it or half the fans hate it, but they like the song. And it was interesting because I was like, really? It's just some effect that you throw on, and it's kind of in this particular record. It's almost like we just went back to like the first 3 Filter records, because I don't want to spend too much time on like Short Bus, because so much of Short Bus was just drum machines and stuff like that. And I wanted to, so like there's a couple songs that are like totally Short Bus, and then it kind of moves on to the other sounds. But it's hinged in 2010, and this millennium, but it's a lot of the chord progressions and stuff like that come from the traditional filter sound. So it's the best of both worlds, I hope. And most of the fans that hear it are just like, because they got Inevitable Relapse and they're like, wow, it's so controversial, and they were tripping out on it. And then we leaked Drug Boy, which is the second song on the record, and everyone's like, fuck it, I'm done, that's the greatest, it's the best filter song, and so we feel like we're winning. So awesome.
You mentioned Inevitable Relapse, and you stated that it's about relationships or a relationship.
Or just the open-ended love song, like it's ultimately kind of like a love song. It might be the love of drugs, but it's still the love of drugs. You know what I mean? Or the love of
So you're using it as a metaphor, the addiction relapse thing for what can be a relationship.
Exactly. It's my drug dependency, kind of my problems in drugs could also be someone's addiction to a person, or someone's addiction to anything. You don't, when you're using in the using phase of your addiction, you don't realize that you're gonna do anything to get drunk, or you're gonna do anything for this addiction, and it's like, that's love, because I would do anything for my kids. I would do anything for my kids in any capacity, and that's a healthy love. You know what I mean? But addiction is this purely, horrendous.
How do you break an addiction then?
Well, for me, I went to specialists. I mean, my addiction was all about drugs and alcohol, and I mean, I threw in the towel. I was like, I guess I just have absolutely no idea how fucked up I am. Because I mean, I got on stage and it was like, I can't even sing. It was so hard to just muster the energy to sing. And the crowd was literally like, I walked out on stage and they were like, yeah! And they just looked at me and they were like, damn. I was green. My last concert, I was literally like a gray.
How long ago was that?
It's coming on 8 years.
How was it writing sober?
What's that?
How was it writing this album sober, fully sober?
It was great. It was fun because Bob Marlette had specifically said, we're going back to the stuff that you wrote before. He's like, what was Hey Man I Shot about? It's our Bud Dwyer, and he killed himself. He said, why isn't that in your new stuff? Why isn't that, it seems like you're talking about everything but stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, let's start talking about stuff like that. And so The Trouble with Angels is about how religion, we started off 2,000 years ago, and we didn't know anything, so we were like, maybe it's a being that lives in the sky, and maybe that being is in charge of everything, and and there's that, and then there's science and fact, and and evolution and knowledge, and and the two kind of collide, whether or not they like it or not, they're colliding, and they're in combat. So it kind of, that goes, a lot of Short Bus was about that, but there's also this amazing amount of stuff that's just suicide. There's 3 songs on this record that are about suicide and murder, and kind of this dark phenomenon that we have as humans. Our Bud Dwyer held a press conference and took out a gun and blew his head off. I mean, you can't write shit like that. Hollywood could not write shit like that. J.C. Dugard was kidnapped and held against her will in a tent in the back of some pedophile's house for 18 years, and escaped and found her way home. Walked into a sheriff's office, said, people might be looking for me. I'm J.C. Dugard. It's like, so I like to talk about the crazier aspects of the human condition, and but I I don't like the last record was really in your face about you know the Iraq War, because a friend of ours was killed. He was only a 21-year-old kid who joined the reserves to like get a college education, and they called him in and he went to Baghdad, and 10 days later he was killed. So we wrote a protest record against the Iraq War, but you know, having done that, I kind of wanted to go back to like just some of the subject matter that was, you know, that my fans have grown to expect, I guess. So.